Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Boolean values in Swift and how those can help you write code. Um, Basically what a Boolean value is a value of true or false. So you can edit how the program flows based on the truth value of some things. So like if you want to, if your program might crash under a certain circumstance, you can use a Boolean value to see if that will happen and eventually avoid that. Um, so just create a new command line tool and call it Boolean. Save it. Let's dive back in. So for this tutorial, I strongly suggest you, if you haven't yet, to check out the previous tutorials on the first app and how to use functions, because I'm going to be using those. So to create a Boolean, you can just use the var keyword and just give it a name and assign it to a truthful value of false. Or true. However, this doesn't always have to be the case because it would be very inflexible to just set it to a constant false or true. So what we can do is use our data to manipulate things. So let's say we want to see if a string is empty. So let's just create a test string and let's create a function to see that if that is true. So to get the result, to see if it is empty, we need to return a Boolean. So what we can do is to do that is see how many, either we can see if input is equal to that. So if we call is empty string and print it, this should be true. Yeah. Another way we can do it is counting how many characters there are. So if there's more than 0 characters inside the string, then that string is not empty. So to see if it is empty, we can just count the elements. So the way you do that is you use the global count elements function, and it can accept multiple data types. One of them is the string, and it counts the number of characters. And you see if that is 0. So this should still be true, and in fact, it is. Another thing I did not mention about functions in my previous tutorial is that the return statement just basically means send the value back to where I called it and break out of this function. So nothing after the return will execute. So if I say var will not work, it'll tell me, hey, the code after return will never be executed. So that's just something to keep in mind. So let's say we want to use this empty string statement. So what we do is make a variable, set it to is empty, call it as empty, and set it to the result of the function. Now, what we can do is use that true value in what is called an if statement. An if statement basically just check if a true value is true or not, and lets you execute code if the conditions are met, or is skipped if the conditions are not met. So let's say we want something in the string, we don't want it to be empty. Well, we can say create an if statement and just write if and put a Boolean value, and delimit it by braces. So now that anything that is between here and here will execute only if is empty is true. If we want to be more explicit, we can just say if is empty is equal to true. So now if it is empty, we can say test string is equal to this is not an empty string. However, we must change this to var because it was a let. Now, to see if this executes, we can just print test string, and if it does execute, which it should print this is not an empty string. And that is what it does. So another useful application of Booleans is in loops, but I'm going to do this in a separate tutorial because it kind of deserves a bit more time. But I'm going to show you also another thing. If you want to clearly delimit in your text what the condition of the if statement is, you can just delimit it by these braces. So this will still execute. So that is Booleans for you. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to talk about optional types. So stay tuned.